Hi, and welcome to Write Your Book Now. This is part four. Today, we're going to talk about three ways to get your book published. You're writing your book, you have your book written, you have a manuscript, you're almost done, you're halfway done, and you want to start finding out, so how do I publish this thing? I'm getting excited about what's in this book. Remember, 80% of people want to write a book, 1% actually do. So if you've written a manuscript, you're part of one percenters. Oh, like pat yourself on the back. This is awesome. Now, there are three ways to get your book published. All of them have advantages and disadvantages. Let's go through them. The first one is self-publishing. Self-publishing, the advantage of self-publishing is that you control the process from beginning to end. You write the book. That's in all three categories. You write the book. You find the editor and you pay the person. You find the layout artist, the graphic designer, and you pay that person. You get that laid out book and you send it to the printing press. You find the press. They print it, you pay them, they send it to you. You store it in your garage or in a deposit somewhere that you've rented, or in your room or spare room in your house, wherever it is. And then you have to promote it and you have to sell it. You have to take it with you on your speaking engagements if you're a public speaker. You have to make cold phone calls. You have to do the work, especially if this is your first book and you don't have a wide platform. You're not a well-known author, which most people are not. It's going to take quite a bit of effort. It's not impossible. That's how I did my first book. I submitted, the publishing house said no, so we did it on our own, and we did all that process. It's like stabbing in the dark and trying to find a good layout artist and somebody who doesn't charge you an arm and a leg, but they do really good work. It's really fine. That balance is really hard to find. People want to charge outlandish amount of money, or they charge you small amount of money, but they do really terrible work. And you can't afford to have your first book not be up to standard. You have to get at least a hit. Okay, you can't strike out in your first book. So that's the advantage. You control the process from beginning to end, which is also the disadvantage, because you control the process from beginning to end. You are responsible whether that book sells one copy or 1 million copies. You are responsible. I think that somebody said, I think the stat that I heard, don't quote me on this, that is if you've sold 70 copies of your book, you're like in the top percentage of authors. So, I mean, that's doable for you. I think it's possible. Advantages and disadvantages. What is the advantage is also the disadvantage in this first category. One thing though, when you submit it to a publishing house, sometimes I get books back after I've submitted them and it's been accepted, and they change things that I don't want changed. But I'm not in control of the process anymore, right? They're paying me, they're buying my books, they are assuming the risk. So they have to, it's a back and forth, but at the end of the day, they can just refuse to publish my book. So if you're really insistent on some things that are remaining in the book and they say no, at the end of the day, you don't have to make a decision whether you go with them or you keep all control, but you're responsible to sell your books. Sometimes they pick covers that are not hugely awesome, but it's a blessing because I'm going to talk about this now. Number two. So the first one is self-publishing. You do the whole thing. Number two is a publishing house, a printing press, smaller, bigger. If you're in the religious space, there's several. As Adventists, we have Pacific Press. We used to have Review and Herald. There are smaller printing presses. You can submit your manuscript and say, I've written a book and here it is. And it's probably wise, if it's your first book and they don't know who you are and you've never written before, it's probably wise to have your book already edited by somebody who's a professional that you paid, right? After your first book, and when they see, well, yeah, this author is a good author, he or she sells books, they move, then you can submit the manuscript with more errors in it, as it were. But your first book, I would recommend after you write it, get it professionally edited so you can submit a quality manuscript. So what are the advantages and the disadvantages? The advantages is they assume all risk. Once your manuscript is accepted, they assume all risk. They have to edit it, and they have the layout artist, and they change the cover, they pick the cover, and they ship it out, they find the buyers. They assume all risk. And it's less hassle because all you have to do is write. The disadvantages is you have less control. You have much smaller margins. And it's really hard to get in. It's a market. It's really hard to get in. It's kind of like with credit. Like when you don't have credit, nobody wants to give you credit. But that's when you need credit. But when you have really good credit, everybody wants to give you credit. But now you don't need credit. That's what happens when we write. Like in the beginning, nobody knows you. And they're like, who are you? Who let you in the building? That's what they told me. But I went ahead and did self-publishing. I published my own book. And it sold well, so I opened some doors, right? So your first book needs to be at least a hit, a double, so you can open doors for the future. So advantages is they assume all risk, and it's a much simplified system for you as an author. The disadvantages I already mentioned. Now, the third one is a hybrid method. This is not very common. It's actually rare, but I've experienced it. It is when it's called a hybrid, right? You do the whole process. You write the book, you edit the book, you assume all the risk, and you printed up 1,000 books, and you have them in your garage, and you call publishing press and say, hey, I wrote a book, it's moving well, it helps when you've already sold some copies, when people see you internet, when it's created some buzz, right? And I'm selling it, I'm just going to pick a random number. I'm selling it for $5, but you can have it for $2, which leaves you, not in reality, I'm just using this as an example, leaves you very, very little margin, but they will purchase the books and put them in places that you couldn't go there even if you tried. There's so many different places. They will put it there for you, but they will again assume the risk of those 100 books that they bought from you at $2 that they put in the ABC or the Book and Bible House, whatever it is that you're gonna publish your book. That's number 3. What's the advantage? The advantage is you get to keep a lot more of the creative process because you've already published your book the way you wanted it. The disadvantage is really small margins and really, really, really hard to get in. Really hard. I mean, you probably have to be an established writer for that to happen. All right? Those are the 3 ways. If you have any questions, reach out. I'm getting questions all the time about this. I'm here to help you. My goal is not just to write, but to develop writers. So if you have any questions, reach out. I cannot read your manuscript, but I can tell you what I know so you can avoid the pitfalls and you don't pay the stupid tax. You know what the stupid tax is? Is the tax you pay for the mistakes you're going to make along the way. I've already paid the stupid tax. You don't have to pay it also, right? Borrow my degree, right? Avoid the mistakes. So If you have any questions, once again, let me know in the comment section. Reach out to me on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Twitter, Facebook page. Let me know what questions you have. I'm here to help you. Subscribe to our channel. Share the content. Will help us out. And thank you. And remember that if God is for us, those who are against us are wasting their time.